Welcome back to The Square. I am your host, Curtis V.
And I'm Curtis IV.
So today we are going to wrap up our extended series here on what we believe to be the greatest sports movie of all time, as we continue with this bracketology inspired show here. So before we dive in, let's recap and see how we got here. Kicking things off, let's kind of just touch on what the matchups are. So from the North Division, we have our winner of that division, Cinderella Man, and that is going to be taking on the number 2 seed in the West Division, Moneyball. And then over in the East, we have the greatest game ever played, and that will be taking on the South Division champion, Creed. So just what are your thoughts on the matchup before we even get into talking about these movies yet?
Well, it's a couple of bizarre matchups. There was some controversy last week. This coin flip stuff that we were getting into, and the power of chance and all that nonsense. But with that, a couple of Titans went down last week, and I was a little disturbed about it. So in the essence of, I don't want to go further. I'll say that. But these are some really good matchups. I mean, a Cinderella Man versus Moneyball, which is like in the if you put you cluster these four movies together, those are like two powerhouses that really going. If this was like a 1-4 versus 2-3, this would be the 2-3 matchup.
Yeah.
Hands down. Where we got the long on the opposite side, we have in the East and the South Division, you have Creed versus greatest game ever ever played, which is kind of one of those. It's kind of funny because it's like, wow, okay, that's a heck of a matchup. It seems like a 1-5 or a 1-4 seed, in the sense of how did the greatest game ever played get here?
Well, I don't think it's too much of a surprise by how much we did talk up greatest game through the first two rounds. So, I know it was shocking for it to beat out your beloved draft day.
Nah, the coin beat it out. So let's call it right.
Well,
draft day should have been a landslide, but whatever.
I mean, well, let's just dive into that matchup to begin with. The first Final Four matchup that we have here. Let's go with it. Creed versus the greatest game ever played. An underdog of all underdogs versus a pretty mean powerhouse in Creed.
Okay, so I'm going to give you, the greatest game ever played, because I think I've talked about it every round up until now, and I refuse now after the coin flip.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
It's all you, buddy. But with that being said, I'm curious as to, not to give anything away, if you could try to understand what I'm about to ask. I'm kind of curious as to how you make your picks, like coming into these podcasts, because I have a method which I don't think it's the same, but I at least just off the top of my head, I think it's quite different than anybody else.
Well, mine is based off of just my impressions. I mean, these are all movies that I've seen, so when I'm looking at them, if I've seen it, clearly I'm just looking at the ones that I enjoyed watching more.
Mm-hmm.
As a base layer of it. But then once you start kind of dissecting the movies a little bit more, I try to get more into how the story was written, how it's formulated, and how it kind of moved and kind of developed throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I look at it more as a storytelling aspect to make my decision more than just kind of sheer likeness of the movie.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
What's yours?
I come in. I come in completely clean slate. Like once we pack up for the week before, I don't look at this thing again. One, because I don't want my picks to be persuade. I don't go and watch the movies. I don't. I try to separate as much as possible from this.
Well, I don't really make my decision before I start looking at the matchups. I literally just look at it. Okay, which one did I like more? That one gets a point. And then basically I'm going in and just kind of dissecting the movies from when I watch them. I don't go after we do the episodes. I make sure I have everything written, and then I walk away from it. I haven't looked at this until yesterday.
Well, that's good to know.
Basically, when I make my decision.
Oh, and sure, because I mean, like you could sit in some of this and be like, you one of the picks don't go the way you thought it. Then you start looking at it like, I'm gonna see that this
Yeah.
movie gets through. Even though we don't
No,
hold
no, no.
executive like we have the executive vote or anything,
Yeah.
but saying if there's anything in my power, I'm voting for this no matter what.
No.
So to avoid that kind of bias, I had to completely disconnect from this each time, just and then come back. Like as I took my little 5 minutes, I actually looked at the paper for the first. I'm like, oh, that's who's bad. I
Yeah.
remember some of the movies,
I
but
remember the whole talk that we had last week, and then basically when I looked at it yesterday, I was like, I completely forgot Cinderella Man made it through. I completely forgot Greatest Game made. Like I just
oh
had no
yeah,
idea what the matchups even were. So
yes,
yeah, I had, like I said, I don't even look at it until the day before we record. So
good. So to all the listeners, y'all getting a very unbiased,
yeah,
selection process here. So some similarities, but very different, two different methods, but both bottom line unbiased.
yeah,
And so, all right, great. As you were saying, greatest game ever played.
yeah. Well, I mean, let's kind of give its a little synopsis here.
Of course, yeah.
Francis Ahmet, he's basically fighting against the establishment of this country club, and how they have a kind of class prejudice against him because he's a middle class, lower middle class kid that's just amateur golfer out here, not doesn't really belong in the country club here, um, and he's works at the country club as a caddy, kind of grinding every day, day in and day out, and then basically he ends up getting into the tournament, and I mean it's kind of history is made after that. His run throughout this all 4 days of the tournament just kind of ran straight through it and was able to win himself basically a major championship. So that's kind of the baseline of it. But the reason why it's here is because of how moving it is and how it actually makes anybody who doesn't give a damn about golf a
Right.
movie to look at and be like, okay, I can kind of get behind this. So
Right.
it definitely is. It's like I said it before. I think 2 weeks ago I said that this was the movie that got me into swinging a golf club for the first time. So I mean, this movie just is moving in a way. It's very inspiring, and it shows just it's one of these Disney movies where yes, it's you can overcome anything if you put your mind to it and all that stuff. But really, the amount of work that he put in and the grind that he had and the comedic relief of his caddy definitely kind of encapsulated this entire movie, and it kind of put it over the top for me to bring it through all the way to the final four now. So that's kind of bare bones synopsis and before because I don't want to get too much into it before we get to picks.
Oh yeah. I'll hit you up with a historical accuracy when I come back. But
Okay.
as I talk about Creed, so Creed, the only one seed to advance, box office
Yeah.
wise. So it's not always about the absolute hit or the trendy movie of the year or whatever or of the season, or blockbuster summer movies
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So with that as you can see, it really has no credence on no pun intended, you know, on how we select and make our decisions to advance the movies ahead.
Yeah.
But Creed again, the Rocky/Rocky Balboa reboot. Now we're in two movies to the franchise. Definitely waiting for a third, but this one started it all. This was the transitional movie. Michael B. Jordan is Adonis Johnson slash Adonis Creed, the son of illegitimate son of former champion and the late Apollo Creed, and and so it's just showing his journey as he's trying to find acceptance and find his way in his identity in boxing. And it didn't go into, well, we know he had a troubled background and he fought a lot, but then they just kind of fast forwarded his life to his young adult life, and then he's just a boxer. So we didn't get to see kind of how that transition happened in the first place. Because what I find interesting on the movie about that I wanted to share, that the relationship between him and Marianne, which was Apollo's
Yeah.
wife and his stepmother at this point. Um, was the fact that she was so dead against him fighting, yet he obviously been fighting. So why did like
Well, I think
it never really explained
to me,
her
well,
where she
I think they kind of implied it, but to me, what it seemed like is that when he was fighting professionally, but then that's in quotations there, he was really fighting amateurly. Like these guys were technically professionals, they were getting paid, but they didn't have the skill set of guys like Apollo or the history, and they weren't boxing out of gyms for that were really training championship fighters. So I think that she's kind of saw him fighting as like, oh, he's doing it, it's a game for him, whatever, kind of not even just brush it off, just like, okay, this will appease him for now. And
well,
then you get to a point where he's looking to get into the ring and become a champion and really take it as serious as he did. That's
uh
what kind of gave her pause.
scale it all the way back. Scale it all the way
What's
back.
that?
No, he's fighting in this. He's out in Mexico. What is it? Mexico City or Tijuana? Or what?
Tijuana, I think. Yeah.
He's going over there. He's fighting currently.
Yeah.
What got him from the detention center to that? There was, what I'm saying, nothing speaks to that process. Because my point is, at some point he had to learn. Granted, he can fight, but at some point he went in somebody's gym. He didn't just go, I'm gonna drive over to Tijuana and just start fighting. I don't think that's what happened. Like he was just this like a savant of boxing, like based on
Yeah.
his genetic makeup. I mean, to a degree, they hint at that, but I'm saying I don't think that was solely where he got all his skill from. I'm just a fighter in general.
Well, yeah. Clearly, he trained.
That's what I'm trying to say. Now, as he's training, I'm just trying to say you would think Marianne would have has put a kibosh on that while he was still a child, as opposed to he's a grown man now. I'm not just saying that he couldn't have lured himself over there. But see, that's what I'm saying. There was such a big time, a jump, and all of a sudden he's just fighting. That's all I was getting at. It
Yeah.
never really truly explains how he ended up starting boxing in the first place.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't tell you that origin.
It can't really. It doesn't
Yeah.
imply based on I'm just he's angry and he's fighting all the time. And okay, you saved him, you got him out of there, and then he's about to get a promotion next scene. He's getting a promotion. Okay, how did you get all the way over here?
Well, yeah,
Mr.
and they didn't. They only showed like one or two of his like. I guess I
No,
keep
go ahead,
doing
go ahead.
quotations, but it's like amateur professional fights because they are on his record, and he has what 23 fights under his belt.
No. In the first, we're in original Creed.
Yeah.
No, he only had like 14.
14. It was some.
It was like that, but he
still that's a lot of fights.
I get that. Now, is it 14 that was in Tijuana? I mean,
yeah, from my impression, I think that when he went to Tijuana, that's all he was doing with those fights. And yes, he was training in Tijuana, he was training in Mexico, but I still those are. I keep saying it. It's like a amateur professional thing because it's not like he's on this big time. He's not with the WFA.
No.
He's not with the.
I completely understand.
Whatever the
WBA,
boxing.
WBCU, and IBF.
Yeah,
out of major three.
He's not with them. He's fighting, getting paid for it. So he's a professional, but it's with these kind of ragtag kids.
And it was kind of what Rocky did.
Yeah,
basically, and I get that. It's like you can, until you're ready to get on that circuit or get on that track.
Yeah,
and of course they're gonna, and bring all those records with it. If your record is decent, Now if you got
14-1 or whatever,
right?
14-0,
yeah, we're gonna bring all that over. You all 14, even though those 14 trash fights, but whatever.
They do it in the UFC. They do it in
boxing. And
today.
I get all that. It was just that's what I was saying. It was the most craziest thing I'm bringing up is Marianne's relationship to him boxing and that.
And that's true, but I think it's also that I think that's a really great story aspect because we talked about it in the last episode. It's same thing with Rocky. Rocky 1, I wasn't even aware of it. He had a 50 fight record at the time, like
something. Yeah. He had
an extensive career beforehand. And I think that's kind of the parallel that I think that they were trying storytelling wise to make there.
Yeah, I thought they left a little bit too much gray there. It was just like I said, it was one little minor detail. I look at what we're here breaking down. Okay, so that's Creed. Obviously, one overly dramatic scene that we're talking about here. But it was kind of, I ain't gonna say a rags to riches. It was kind of, he was found by Marianne Creed, Apollo's late wife.
Mm-hmm.
I mean Apollo's wife, and she raised him as his own. I know Apollo had more kids, which was interesting because the other kids never came in the picture ever.
Yeah, I was actually expecting that to be a bigger thing, but it never really did.
No,
except for him getting turned away by it was his cousin. At the gym in L.A.
No. That was Duke. Remember Apollo's trainer, the bald
Gotcha.
guy? That was
Yeah.
his son.
Gotcha.
So it's Duke Jr.
Yeah.
So played by Wood Harris, by the way.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that's all it is. So they I think obviously he didn't ever sit actually train in that gym, but
No.
well, at least he didn't train him in the gym at no point, but he was around. But
Yeah.
it's just it's a lot of implication around in there. But it's like I would have liked them to dive in it a little bit deeper. But that's me being overly critical of the movie. With that being said, that does not take anything away from the movie. The movie had everything: action, it had drama, passion, love, inspiration. All of these
All of
things.
the above.
And but we got the modern urbanish version of it. It's not just the prototypical Rocky Balboa,
Yeah.
flying high,
Yeah.
anthem, which is classic, and that's all fine. But they went a different direction, and so let Creed, Adonis Creed, get his own identity, well written. I think Creed would not. I think it would have the impact of Rocky, the original. However, I think it's bigger than what Rocky had actually. In the grandest thing, I
Yeah.
think this is much bigger. Some on a much bigger scale. Ryan Coolidge did a excellent. I mean, man, did an excellent job on this movie.
I never even realized Ryan Coogler was a director on this movie.
Yes.
That's amazing. Ryan Coogler quickly became one
Am
of
I
my
saying his
favorite.
last name wrong? I probably am.
It's Ryan Krugler.
Krugler. Okay, moving on.
Kruger.
I said it
Krugler.
wrong.
I think I might have said it wrong. It's a tough one to say.
Yeah, he did Black Panther. Everybody's
That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
No, I mean, but he's quickly become one of my favorite directors, and it's not just because he's a really good black director. No, it's the way that he tells stories that is very interesting, and he's actually done a couple of like explainer videos about his directing style. The way that he kind of ties in culture to the way that he story tells in his visual aspects. He doesn't just oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of culture here and let's detail it by saying it in the movie. He actually shows it.
Yeah.
I mean, in Black Panther specifically, I mean, everything with the Dora Milaje and all of that stuff. I know this isn't a MCU podcast, but
No.
just it's this is getting to how him as a director, his storytelling style, I think, really plays well to the way that he was able to kind of keep everybody's attention in this movie. It's just the way that he tells story. It's very encapsulating, and he gets you, and he doesn't really let you go.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's get to picks. Where are you at with these two?
Well, I mean, I do want to just say give greatest game ever played is due, simply because it made it to the final four. It definitely,
as you can tell, he's writing it off as he speaks.
It's no. It trampled. No. Because I'm going to share something about the movie that I haven't shared before. I just want to make sure I do say something to the movie in each round, and this one I'm going to share in a moment. But they did beat my beloved Draft Day last week in the last round, and that was a devastating upset. That was almost like that's almost like Duke beating Kentucky to face UNLV in 1991. Yeah. So that is exactly what that game was. When Grant Hill throws the ball all the way down 3/4 court of the court, Christian Laettner catches it, shoulder fake, turns around, sinks the jumper, for the game. And there you go, run storming off the court. And Kentucky has been chasing behind them ever since. Moving on. Okay.
You just had to get that in for your your little fan of your blue fandom there.
Moment. Like it just came like, oh, this is perfect. Okay, moving on. So
can't wait to see the comments on that one.
Oh yeah. Bring it on, Kentucky. So for historical, there was some historical accuracy. Now, greatest game ever played. Am I allowed to give what happened at the very end of the movie, or do I skip that?
I mean, at this point, we've told you guys to watch it so many times. Let's just get to it.
So Francis Mehmet, to win the game, he on the 18th hole of the final round, he was able to he had to sink a putt.
Mm-hmm.
And to win, and he won by one stroke. And the pomp and circumstance, he's getting carried off the field. His dad comes out, who was dead set against him even being a part of this, to show and endorse that he supported him even in that moment, that he finally supported his son and his son's decision, which was a very strong element in the movie about they was having old school way of thinking. Just keep your head down and work hard and so
Yeah.
on, and you'll be fine. And he's trying to soar above that, And I told you it's a movie about class,
Yep.
And so with that being said, um, in reality, Mr. Mehmet had won this match by 6 strokes.
Did he?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
getting at.
he's basically the old time version of Tiger Woods.
He was
Young comes in and just absolutely wrecks the field.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm getting at. Like, you got to be kidding me.
I mean, even the Masters that just passed, I think whoever won it, he only won it by 2 strokes at the most. I can't even remember what the difference was, but man, that's crazy. 6 strokes is a lot. I mean, that's basically going into that hole. There's no way.
And what was that? Harry Varden was the one, and it was which was the main character, Mr. Stannis Baratheon over there.
Yes.
And then they had Stephen Ray. So he beat Varden by 5 strokes and Stephen Ray by 6.
That's crazy.
That's in reality. That was my little tidbit. Like, okay, so
it's even better.
So Disney dumbed it down. Like,
well, I guess
I know for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
Like, come on, dude. You want to know what's dramatic? Lance, I'll be blowing you out on the course. Look what Tiger Woods did in his first Masters. Was that dramatic effect for you?
Jesus.
I mean, because that's still edged in everybody's brain with that red polo on and him hugging his dad. He just went in there and killed him. He was like a shark, And I'm like, are you serious? I'm sitting there thinking of the movie. I thought so well of this movie until I found out that once I got that little tidbit, I was like, you robbed me. You robbed me of he routed them. Like,
and I mean, and the reason why that's a little bit more upsetting is only because there's a way to tell a landslide victory like that very compellingly.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I was like, wow, Disney, man, y'all dumbed it down for the dramatic effect. I'm like, that's kind of backwards, but I mean, genius movie, regardless. They still pulled it off.
Yeah.
I just mean,
still got me to pick up a golf club.
Just knowing that made the movie even better for me. Like, and they even took 5 strokes off the game, off the match, off the movie.
That's crazy.
Exactly. So yeah. So this thing was it was this foregone conclusion before.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So I mean, with that and Disney, snafooing, let's vote.
Well, sorry, Disney, but even with that nice little tidbit, I think that one does it in. I'm going with Creed. I think the storytelling of Creed is just, even though greatest game, it, like I said, it's the one that made me pick up a golf club for the first time. Creed, I think its story and the way that it's told and how powerful it is, and again, with even without the boxing in there, you're looking at a movie that just has so much substance to it. So I'm going with Creed here.
All right, maybe I'll shake the world up here. Now that Disney has robbed us of 4 strokes minimum, 4 to 5 strokes. That alone gets them disqualified. Creed goes in hands down.
You get your justice after last round.
That's right. So greatest game ever played will not be escaping this one. Unfortunately, I think Creed is just a little bit out of the greatest game ever played's reach.
Yeah.
From it moves me in a certain way, but Creed moves me in a different kind of way, in a very modernish, kind of urbanish way.
Yeah.
I can really relate to the characters a little bit more. However, that takes nothing away from the greatest game ever played.
I mean, the fact that it beat out things such as Draft Day, Space Jam, Bloodsport. I mean, that's a movie that that one holds its own against just about everything, and it just so happens that it falls to Creed here.
In actuality, it beats your Major League, actually.
Well, I was just saying overall, where it's made it
in its run for the title here.
Yeah,
it got.
And I mean, even Major League too. Major League is a fantastic movie, and it got beat out. So
and it got snagged on Creed. I'm like, greatest game ever played just had so much insurmountable barriers here and obstacles to overcome. And I'm not saying that Creed beat it in the landslide. I just said Creed beat them. I probably said that. I misspoke. No, because I would be basically saying all of a sudden that this movie don't even hold water next to this. I'm like, if you're in the Final Four, you can hold water to any sport movie according to me.
And I wouldn't even be mad if Greatest Game did get put through. It's just Me and you both agree that it is Creed.
Exactly. So for that and that alone, Creed goes through.
All right, well, let's flip to the other side of the bracket, the very tough matchup where we have the number 2 seed, a powerhouse in Moneyball, coming in and taking on another 2005 classic here, but also a movie that just is a boxing marvel, a storytelling marvel in Cinderella Man. So this is going to be a very interesting conversation, in my opinion.
Mm.
But just first initial thoughts on the matchup.
This is gonna be rough, to say the least. I love both of these movies. They are both inspiring. They, I think Cinderella Man tends to work more for me on my psychological aspect of me, as well as opposed to Moneyball kind of works on the analytical side.
Yeah,
So
it's your left brain, right brain.
I guess man, it's just and then if I watch something like for example, the Bad News Bears, now neither brain is where I'm just watching that, and it's just
Yeah,
whatever, see, I'm just trying to show what these movies do. It's different classifications. These are more sophisticated movies for me. As far as a sports movie,
yeah.
I just what I would classify under a sophisticated sports movie, and it's kind of the ones I like. Maybe just I don't know if I'm gonna say this day and age in my life, but or just the fact that they're just starting to put more of those out now. I just kind of like those kind of stories to be told as opposed to just what happens
Yeah,
on the playing field or the court.
yeah. And that's to me like it's nice to see those every once in a while, something lighter like that. I mean, but basically, I'm not looking to watch Airbud. I'm really looking to watch something that's going to make me think. So, like, I do appreciate those movies. So that's something that you can play in the background and be fine with. But these movies, like Moneyball and Cinderella Man, you really actually have to watch and think about it as you're watching it, and that's what actually gets you to feel something.
Exactly, and I couldn't agree more. I have to ask: is Airbud an honorable mention that you're giving?
Absolutely not.
I was hoping. Man, he went Airbud. I don't to this day I have not watched it, which means safely I will never watch it ever in my life.
You don't need to.
I, nothing was not on my bucket list, so it surprisingly did not make our list. Yeah, right.
Oh no, the
Exactly.
calamity.
We could put like Mike with that.
Oh gee, no, let's not.
And like Mike too, straight to DVD version.
Back to sophisticated movies here.
Yes, yes. Oh my God, I was going down a rabbit hole of nonsense.
Well, I want to talk about Moneyball for a second here.
You always talk about Moneyball
because I love it. Moneyball is so good.
I'm gonna let you talk about both movies because
I will.
These are both your movies, and I think I've already given Cinderella Man is just due for 2 rounds, and it's really one of your picks, and I don't have a problem with it, but I like to let the person who made the pick really take the lead on the movie. So,
well,
have at it.
Well, let me start with Cinderella Man then, because and I want to get your thoughts on because you have been talking about it for the last 2 rounds, but I know you got more to talk. But Cinderella Man to me, and I'm not gonna give another synopsis because I literally just did it last week. Gave a full synopsis on it in the week before that and the week before that. But Cinderella Man, again, to me, the storytelling for this movie is just above any other boxing movie to me. And that's has nothing to do with how Creed is, and it has nothing to do with what like Rocky is, and any other boxing movie for that matter. The Hurricane, all those guys, the Fighter, all of those are they're told in a different way. And Creed, we've talked about how that one's different as well. But for Cinderella Man, the way that it touches on just the humanity of it is different. And the reason why is because you are talking about it during a time during the Great Depression, and we've harped on that over the last 2 weeks on how kind of stark that visual is for this movie. But it's like you said, that scene where you're looking through the photos and how those photos kind of deteriorate throughout the time and everything like that. It's a very powerful visual on how that actually shows what they're going through. The whole the scene with the daughter getting the extra piece for breakfast and whatnot. Like, man, it just shows how hard you have to work during a time like that. And and to not even feel the benefits of it because you're still stuck in a depression. Financially, you're in a rut, and there's no money to go around. Like
Right.
there's no money to be given at that point. So it just, for that to be the case, and then for you to go out and still be able to fight and still be able to make a living for your family, and then to also go out and win a championship. I mean, just the way that they told that story is gripping. And this is, I don't know who the director is, but whoever it is found a way to grab somebody's attention and to never let go throughout
Ron
that.
Howard.
Ryan Howard?
No, Ron Howard.
Ron Howard.
Richie Cunningham. Happy Days.
I've never seen
Oh,
Happy Days.
yeah, I forgot you're late. You never watched Happy Days? You Google Happy Days. Oh my goodness, I can't believe you.
You can't even talk.
I mean, at some
You
point,
and Mom are the reason why I haven't watched a lot of
classic.
things.
At some point, just from watching TV, scanning, it should have flashed with the Fonz and
What I watch is live sports on TV. What do you mean?
The 50s. Come on, it's a staple. If you watch the doggone Bad News Bears and Rocky and all, you've seen this at least once.
I might have. I just don't remember it.
Oh wow. Okay, but that's. I mean, he was an actor turned director, so he's directed a lot of movies.
Gotcha. Well,
I'm sure you've seen his movie. I mean, you've seen his work many times over and have not even realized it.
More than likely. I mean, I have seen a lot of things, but
yeah, you never seen the Andy Griffin Show?
Mm-mm.
Ever? Like it's just in passing?
Well, I can't say that. I don't know. I might have. I have never sat down and chosen to watch it.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Looking it up now.
No, you're fine. I mean, he did A Beautiful Mind. Did Apollo 13, Ransom.
I have seen the Andy Griffith Show and
Backdraft. He's the kid. That's all.
Gotcha.
But that's me. It doesn't do justice. It's more so like we know him from Happy Days more than anything.
Okay.
He did Splash, Cocoon, Willow. This is all the 80s movies. Parenthood. Angels and Demons, which was the part 2 of the Da Vinci Code. He did a Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've seen the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, he's that guy.
A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I've seen his work.
Yeah, that's him. Did Solo, a Star Wars story.
I actually haven't seen Solo.
It. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Okay, let's get back to Cinderella Man. Okay, that was just giving us. This is Ron Howard's work.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Don't even remember where I was with that, but no. But James Braddock being able to deal with everything that comes with the depression, still be able to support his family, work as hard as he did, not be able to put food on his own plate, but doing everything that he can to take care of his kids and get food on their plate, and then to go out and win a championship in a sport that you're literally just wailing on each other. Like that is attrition of all attritions.
But
so
the other component was his comeback was really on a fight by fight basis too.
True.
Which if he had lost any of this, all this would have went away.
Yeah.
And which was even a more of a compelling story, which is like, okay, he cannot lose, you know, until he reaches goal. So it was so much. You was watching it, but by the end, you were cheering for this guy, like, please get the championship.
100%.
And like this came out in
2005.
2005. I'm going to say 1998. Okay, 2005.
I was born.
And still a long time ago. And for, I mean, you sitting back, there wasn't an internet boom just yet. It was there, but it was coming.
Yeah.
You know, it was still, we had about another year or two.
Yeah, I don't think the internet boom really happened until the iPhone came out. So that's like 2 years later.
So, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It was there, but it wasn't the thing per se. So I'm saying that to say this, that you wasn't necessarily leaving there and like, okay, let me go get on Google and see what, you know, and let me find out some things about this movie.
Yeah.
You didn't really research. It's like if they didn't do a documentary, we just took their word from like, hey, it was a good story. I mean, I'm sure there was some things in there that probably wasn't as accurate, but I mean, I got the gist of it, and you know, everybody's agreeing. So that's therefore, you know, that's the truth. You know,
and that's why I thought that this movie, and I said it last week, is so underrated. Like, apparently everybody's seen it, and it's made quite a bit of money. It's a 3 seed for a reason with its box office numbers and whatnot. But it still doesn't seem like when I talk to anybody that this is a sport movie or a or a boxing movie that people really enjoyed as much as I did. I felt like I did. And but whenever I talk to somebody specifically, like one person, they're like, "Oh yeah, that movie was really good. I liked it." But then you get into a group of people, they're like, "Cinderella Man never really comes up as one of the better boxing movies or better sports movies that I've seen." And I'm like, "Why is that?"
See, and that's the question: is like, what are we looking for within a sports movie?
Yeah,
Is it okay? Like, let's just say we take, as an example, we taking Rocky Four instead. Okay, Rocky Four is built a certain way and it's inspiring us in a really, it's just 0 to 10, and we're gonna keep you on 10 the whole movie, basically. I'm talking about Rocky Four.
yeah,
Rocky Four didn't really have any low points.
no.
It was just intense. Virtually
But
except
in
the
that
couple of
storytelling,
Adrian scenes, and that's it. Yeah, other than that,
in storytelling line, that's okay because they were really touching on the Cold War at the time.
true, and I was fine. Now we go and we take Cinderella Man, deep plot, deep depression, family core values, survival, homelessness, starvation. We're dealing with all of this. I mean, could one say that in the original Rocky? Maybe he was a couple months away from that, but he wasn't in the
It
Great
was not as
Depression.
dire as
No,
this.
his house had heat.
Yeah,
You know, he did not have to have kids that was getting sick, and he didn't have a wife just yet.
oh man.
It's just, that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, what was we looking at when when you ask the people this? It's almost like you're asking the question is so general. You almost have to ask
Yeah,
very specific, like, what exactly did you not or did you like about the movie?
yeah.
Was it more the boxing or more the other stuff? In light of the boxing.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, we are looking at sports movie. Like movie is a part of it to me, and I'm like, so you have to be able to have a much more compelling story at the end of the day, and that's
Yeah,
the reason why Creed is here. That's the reason why Moneyball is here. That's the reason why Cinderella Man is here.
yeah.
Greatest game ever played.
Reason why
100%
it
right. The
was
reason
there.
why it's here.
Yeah.
Like, there's no. You have to like, yes, there are more interesting sports movies. Like again, if you're just looking for the sports of it, go watch Airbud. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a movie that's gonna
Right.
make you think, this movie is that for you.
And I mean, looking at all the four of our last selections, I can argue that I would classify them as sophisticated sports movies.
And I think that sport movie gets a bad rap a lot of the time because it's really, oh, the sports carrying it, but no, I and to me all of these I would classify as just movies at the end of the day.
And that's
It
what I
just
get at.
so
The
happens that they're
s-
about
the
sports.
sport is the hook.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is. It is not it shouldn't be the end all be all.
yeah,
Some movies are designed that way, and I don't, like you were saying, don't have a problem with that. But it just, yeah, it's kind of like, what do you look? It's a movie first,
yeah.
not a sport first. It's just, yeah. Moving on, as you were saying.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think I made my point very clear about it. It's just Cinderella Man. The way that it tells its story is just it. Like you said, it gets a hold of you. It doesn't let go, and even when it does get slower, it's something that you're locked into understanding just the mind of James Braddock. Because man, there's a lot going through your head through all of this stuff that you're going through.
Exactly, and able to stay focused enough, and to stay and to stay the course and stay and achieve his goal.
Yeah,
You didn't see that coming from Corin Griffin and John Henry Lewis,
yeah,
and Max Baer. And no, they coming in there just to fight and
yeah.
whatever party they going to afterwards or going out to eat.
Win or lose, they don't
Right.
care.
This man worrying about so what were you thinking about today? What did he say? Milk? Didn't he
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Because remember they ran out of milk and she had to fill up half the bottle with
yeah.
water and like, oh look, nice skim milk, because that's what she had. That's probably had 0.1% milk left.
Yeah.
It was just water. That's rough. And you trying to provide, and I'm sure the mom and his wife was sitting there making sacrifices just as much as he was. I'm sure she didn't eat much.
Yeah.
But I mean, damn. I mean, if anybody was starving, it wasn't the kids, it was them.
Yeah.
And but you taking that into the ring. And like he literally in one fight, he was going to go into the ring on an empty stomach. Like literally. Like he like, look, I just need a payday. I need money.
Yeah.
So the movie really goes there. Like if you ever been at that point where you just didn't know where to turn, or I felt like you was at your wits end financially and you thought you was about to lose this man went through it and still from contending light heavyweight champion to heavyweight champion. That is where this movie went, you know. So yeah,
Insane.
that's all I wanted to add to the Cinderella Man. I just wanted you to really take the bulk of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say about it. I think over the last few weeks we've been talking about it. Today, even we've added more. I didn't think that we had more to give about it, but we did.
Yeah.
So
I had to save a little bit for
yeah,
Final Four.
of course, we
Just a
always
little
do.
bit.
Always got to keep the viewers coming back for more.
Mm-hmm.
No, well, let's talk about its competitor, Moneyball.
Oh.
Uh, I mean, I know you were looking up some quotes
Oh no, I was just
earlier.
looking. I was just chuckling. It was just
So I mean,
because I could never. I mean, Brad Pitt has to be one of the most cleverest,
100%.
actors out of all time. It's just his whole demeanor. Like, if I can do that for like 5 minutes, man, I'm like, oh my god, you're a genius, dude. I don't know if that's a part of your personal behavior, because I think that's just his personality. Technically, I think to some degree,
Yeah,
he's very witty. He's quick. It's just the roles he play, and I think he does it very well. But no different than Billy Bean, which makes me really want to look up Billy Bean. Is Billy Bean like this, or that's just him?
I don't know.
Souped up
I've
version of
never
Billy Bean.
actually had that question. I just think he plays the role so well
That's what
that
I'm
it's
getting
just
at.
I never even had that thought.
Right. So to try to even repeat one of his quotes, I would just chop it up. That's why I just stopped
Yeah,
trying to do it. I just like, let me just look at what he said. It's just he has a way of saying things, and his body posture is just it's classic. So
100%.
that in itself made the movie for me. Just how he played the
Just that
role.
character,
Right.
it's
I don't
just
even know if Billy Bean is that entertaining,
yeah,
but he made him entertaining in this. He made him very interesting in this movie.
yeah.
So
Well, I mean, it's just I mean, it makes me think of just the movie itself. Always makes me think of Brooklyn 99. Don't know if you've ever watched the series. Well,
what's
Captain
that?
Holt, he's it's a sitcom based off of a police precinct in New York. It's got Andy Samberg. He's James Peralta. Amy Sandagato is another detective. There's a Rosa Diaz. She's the gruff, super hard ass in the show. They got the idiot Charles Boyle. He's just he's another detective, great at his job, but he's just clumsy, klutzy, the weird dude. And then you got Captain Holt. He's a black gay captain, always looking to do everything by the book to a T, and this, that, and the other. But the reason why I bring it up is because there's a hilarious scene in the show where they're talking about how robotic their captain is, and he's the just robot captain. Meet Morp. He has to analyze everything and make sure that the outcome is going to be greater than the risk that they're taking and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes in and he says, "There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the reason why my favorite movie of all time is Moneyball. There's the statistical analysis is just beautiful," and he starts crying. So,
Oh
it's
my
just one of
god.
those things where it's just like, yes, that is like the kind of epitome of like, yes, this movie is all about analytics. They get really gritty into the numbers and whatnot, and they do tell it in a compelling way. So I get
Mm-hmm.
it, Captain Holt. But at the end of the day, I think that this movie it was to me, it was more than that. It was kind of how Billy Bean was able to, or whether this is true or not, the movie made it put it this way, where it was also about how he ended up learning how to be a true GM and a different type of GM where he's actually talking to his players and he's coming down explaining to them, this is what we're trying to do and this is why this will work. And you can see how the players were actually on board before anybody in the front office was, anybody in
Exactly.
that scouting department was, anybody in the coaching staff was. Like,
Right.
at the end of the day, he was able to get the players on board before he was able to get the guys that actually knew what he was doing on board first. And that's what came down to him having to fire people and getting them out of the building. Anybody who's being insubordinate, let's get, like, you got to get out of here, because these guys understand, they know what they're doing, they know what we're trying to do here, and they're doing whatever they can on the field. But if you guys aren't going to allow them to have that opportunity, then clearly you got to go. Uh,
Right. I,
so what do you?
I wonder if the NFL had a similar problem when they had to introduce the Wildcat. the NFL. Like once it was kind of embraced,
Yeah.
because I wonder if there's similar, processes and discourses that went on to try to get coaches to buy into and and not get shunned because they say somebody go out there and try to run that for a play and it doesn't work. Now somebody's job is on the line.
Well, I think that for the NFL, anyways, the reason why that was why it took so long for that to change is because they were still with this whole stigma that the black quarterback can't work.
I mean, no different than what we're saying in Moneyball right now.
True, and
That's what I
yes,
was getting at.
yeah, but
It just
but
shows
to
a
me, the
parallel.
reason why that's a thing is just because no coach would really take a chance on him yet, and you got Lamar Jackson who did it, and you got and now everybody's comparing him to Michael Vick. But I mean, who was the first successful? Who was the after Michael Vick? Who was the only other guy that came in and really did the athletic black quarterback good or successfully?
Wilson.
Yeah, and but every single time
and won the ring.
any athletic quarterback,
And won
not
the
and it doesn't even
championship.
matter if they're black or not.
No.
Any athletic quarterback comes in, they always try to turn him into this pocket guy. Like eventually, we're gonna make him a pocket guy 3 years down the line, and it completely derails our careers.
True. And they finally came off of that.
Finally,
Several years ago. I don't. They didn't do it in like any. You just had to kind of notice that you just did it.
Yeah.
They just finally just left it alone like this. It's the pink elephant in the living room that no one's going to talk about.
Yeah.
In the NFL, and that's fine. And so I digress.
That
it was just a parallel. I thought it was very similar, and you confirmed you agree. So
Yeah.
it was just I was wondering if I was chuckling only to myself like, they're gonna make a movie, the Wildcat, or something, and it's gonna be some kind of spoof like
Probably.
Moneyball.
Yeah. No, I could see it happening. No, but yeah, it just Moneyball is that just one of these movies where even outside of the statistics and how great I mean, we've talked about it time and time again, just the behind the scenes on how you execute something like that is amazing. But you get down to the story with his daughter, his family, knowing that there's people looking to fire him, knowing that the owner of the team isn't going to give him any leeway. We got to figure out how to get it done with the money that we have on the books right now. That's exactly what he told him at the beginning of the movie, middle of the movie, and the end.
Yep.
And then for him to actually turn down Boston's offer, which was crazy amounts of money, buku amount of money, for him to be able to turn that down and still go back to Oakland and continue to try to rebuild that, I just as a character, I think that development, to know that he was looking to have success with it, get the success with it, and then stay true to himself. That was another piece that just made that movie even more compelling at the end of the day.
Right. Well, there's a couple things that wasn't mentioned about this wonderful movie. Was some of the footage that they put in it. They put live footage of the A's playing.
A lot of it.
And as I look back, when I looked at it, I was like, wow, I kind of remembered this happening. And what I'm speaking to is the kind of coverage we got over here in the Midwest in comparison, where I wanted this. And my point of saying that was the movies had really, I was so caught up in this, like, oh my God, this run that they were running. It had you so on edge, like, oh my God, are they going to actually break the record? In my mind, I couldn't really actually remember. And I was just like, okay, why don't I not remember this? And this was just very recent. This is baseball, people. And this is how media works, that this thing did not get the traction it should have got. And that's what happened. I know that they did some segments on ESPN and Sports Center on this, and I know that some networks had to cover this here and there.
Yeah.
But it was really a footnote while this was all happening. But this movie zeroed in on this, and I mean, it made it seem like it was the biggest thing going on in Major League Baseball, if not in sports that summer. And that it really wasn't. And I'm speaking to, this is how inspiring this movie is. It, for any one story, it will give you can get this inspiration, you can get all of these elements we're talking about, but it really puts it on Front Street and make you feel like it was the only story going on. And
I think that the reason why that's so important is because it's not even the fact that it wasn't talked about in the sports community as much.
Hmm.
I don't even think it was talked about that much in the baseball community.
Yeah,
Because that has to be like one
it
of the
just talked about, but yeah, and it's like, but yet it really was not one of
yeah,
those. It's not something you're gonna see on First Take, and they're gonna sit here and break down the analytics to how they
not at
won the
all.
17 games, and let's compare them to. And the movie caught that is, they went and showed you these teams from the past. I get chills every time I see that. I'm like, I never seen this
Yeah,
footage before, and I'm like, Murderers Row, or this team, these Yankee teams from, oh my god, would just decimate the leagues, and like couldn't nobody, and they had everybody,
yeah.
super teams in baseball, people, you know. That really, that's what it
That's
was. It
probably
was a
the
super team
originator of super
franchise.
teams.
As a franchise, it was a super team.
Yeah.
They, all of these names, all from the Yankees.
Hmm.
I think 16, 17, 18, 20 something names. I'm just rolling them off. All play for the, what, man, with the league. How y'all miss out on all these people? You know,
They didn't. They just didn't have the money.
I get that.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. And that's what I'm, and that's what I'm getting at. And yet, every time I watch the movie, I try to think. I'm like, I kind of remember them talking about. I seen the story on sport. It wasn't no, Sunday, what Sunday mornings, um, behind the lines,
Oh, outside the
type. Oh,
lines.
outside the lines. There was none of that. It was
No,
no documentary pieces, special, written pieces that they're gonna do 20 to 10
nope.
minute thing. None of that. This, man, this is why I'm speaking to the genius of this movie.
And it's funny because like
It
I
just,
still don't watch regular season baseball. I can't get around to it because it's again 162 games. It's freaking ridiculous. And that's again a story. We will definitely talk about that this summer. So
right.
stay
I
tuned for
think
that. But
and I think that record being broken and that streak happened right before really
yeah,
how sports media really took off. It was there, but it wasn't like, oh my god, we got a story, we're gonna throw everything into this story. And
yeah,
they didn't do that. They may have did it in Oakland. It could have been, I mean, on a local level maybe, but nationally, it amazes me how it did not get the traction that it did. I'm like, they just broke a freaking MLB record that I don't even remember. They talking about 20 something, what was it, 21,
20 games.
20 games. I don't remember a team ever doing 10. In my
That's
physical
hard to do.
memory. Exactly. I'm like, I'm thinking like, this actually happened.
Yeah.
This was in the 2000s.
And that's the thing that because that's what I was getting to is like even though like clearly I don't watch baseball all the time. When this happened, I was what 7. Like I was very young when this happened, and again clearly I'm not watching baseball regular season anyway. And
watching more than me at 7. But go ahead.
true. But at the end of the day, it's like watching this movie. The first time I watched it, I thought this was made up because that's how much like this isn't talked about. It's just I didn't even realize that this was a real thing that happened, and then you start seeing the real life footage coming through, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I had to think like, oh well, this is during that turning of the age. We have all this new technology and everything. So I was thinking like, oh, there was some way that they could doctor all this footage and whatnot. But no, it was completely real. And I go back and I watch it, and you look back at it, you're just like, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like and to your point, like the fact that this is something where I am just a diehard sports fan in general, and I didn't know that this was something that was this big in that it even had happened is something where that baseball needs to get its stuff together.
They do. They do. They can start with that schedule. So
again, we will definitely talk about how we can fix baseball
trim that down
later this summer. That'll be a very special show, and we will stay tuned for that.
Summer edition there.
Yeah.
Need something to talk about.
No. Yeah. So that I think we've kind of synopsized all of these movies more than enough.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add.
Well, let's get down to the picks here then. Cinderella Man versus Moneyball. Who you got?
Oh God, this, I gave my due diligence to
choice.
both of these. I love both of these movies, and so I needed to talk and speak to both of them in some way, shape, or form. And now I'm done, and now I have to give my unforgiving pick here. Taking the two powerhouses and considering everything that has been said today and how we've broken down these movies and how they've inspired us and moved us, and um, well, I have to do not a rock paper scissors thing, but if I had to flip a coin on the aspect of which one I would choose, or I figure some point out what is the tie breaking element.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it came down to something as quirky as this. Which one do I go to sleep to? Meaning that I'm comfortable enough where I can watch it and I can subconsciously listen to it for a while and just drift off to sleep and be all the better. And then when I wake up, I'll rewind it back to where I stopped and continue watching it. Unfortunately, that was not the movie of Cinderella Man. So
I felt that one coming.
my pick is Moneyball, going to the championship.
Same here.
And there we have it, people. Cinderella Man came in. I think they put up a good series, good
very,
fight.
Very good series.
I had a great run. I mean, knocked out powerhouse Rocky
This would 100% basketball series. Like, take out the fact that this is supposed to be a March Madness bracket.
Right.
If this was NBA playoffs, this is conference finals, game 7, overtime.
and Moneyball sinks a 3.
Yeah,
at the buzzer.
At the buzzer.
I mean, it was that close.
Yeah.
That I like both of these movies. It's just like, hey, how you choose one for this? I'm like, man, either one. We like, which one we watching tonight? Whichever one you put into into the machine. Okay, that's what we're watching.
Which one are we watching tonight? Both.
Right. You just choose which order you want to watch it in. I'm just like, what are you talking about? I'm like, as long as how long we staying up? If we do staying up, if we up 4+ hours, both. What are you talking about? It's a foregone conclusion. But yeah. So unfortunately, I'm taking Moneyball, but that's not saying anything against Cinderella Man. Meaning that I had to pick one, and so far, I'm sorry, I just had to pick one. So there it is. So
we got a national championship matchup of Moneyball, a 2 seed out of the West Division, going up against 1 seed Creed out of the South Division.
So the South versus the West, interesting.
Yep.
Oh, here's Chicago, South Side versus West Side. Exactly.
That's a nasty matchup there.
Exactly. Well, beach north and east, because that wouldn't make any sense there.
Oh, there is no east.
Exactly. Be in the water.
Yeah. Just swimming out there, Lake Michigan. No. Well, let's get down to it. Let's talk about the two, and well, I guess we've done our synopsis of both of these, so we don't really have to recap them, but let's talk to the matchups here.
Okay, well, we got number 2 seeded Moneyball versus number 1 seeded Creed, and it is for the greatest sports movie of all time. You can go. You want to stab at this first?
I will just say that I don't want to do this. No, I don't. This is tough. This one's really tough. I think that Creed has a better story if you take the sport out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, I am going with Moneyball in this aspect, where even with you taking out the sport, and yes, Creed has a little bit more there, Moneyball is able to move you in such a way that I'm trying to say this without trying to put down Creed, because you really can't put down Creed, but I don't want it to seem like the listeners thinking that I'm trying to say Creed's not a fantastic movie. I just think Moneyball, with what you do take out of the sports aspect of it, the content is just a little bit deeper there for me.
Okay. Well, For dramatic effect, I'm going to take Creed. But let me tell you why. And it's not, it was not to take the opposing side.
And I
And
don't
I,
hate it.
I
I
already
don't.
told myself what my pick was before you said yours.
Okay.
So I'm saying it was Creed. So,
Okay.
because if it was Moneyball, I would have just stayed cool and then I would have just did my thing and then said the same thing. But it's Creed. But let me tell you why. I had to take the two matchups and considering all the synopses that we just shared
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, and then taking the tiebreaker element of which one do I go to sleep to or which
Yeah.
one. Yeah, it was both in this case. So that was I literally like when this first man Creed for the first 2 weeks was just I got played every single night to go into bed. Like
Yeah.
and it was just and I was fine with it. It comforted me to sleep, and it's like if I heard it, it didn't even distract me. I don't even like TVs on when I go to sleep. But this, I'm okay with that being in like that playing in the background. So that unlike just like Moneyball can't get the edge there. However, so I had to look at another criteria. Um so I started looking a little bit deeper into the movie, and um, I looked at the element of okay, which one inspired me the most, and this is the tiebreaker rule.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, Moneyball, and this is my synopsis to Moneyball. Moneyball because of its analytical element and taking that type of process and that formula in a sense, or that um skill of and research ability to look at the numbers in a different way. It is far gone. It has far helped me just from a fantasy aspect and the way that how I look at my fantasy teams now.
100%. And
And
this and to that point, Moneyball does change the way that you think about sports as a whole.
exactly. And I'm gonna have to say, to my success, it has not given me a championship, but it has kept me in the conversation year in and year out.
Over the last 3 seasons, I have been in deep contention with trying to get outside of this last
No, I
season where
understand.
I
I understand.
just had injuries kill me. But even with like my own league, like
Oh yeah,
every single year, I'm in the championship.
yeah. And I mean, and some of yeah, it comes to knowing your teams and good coaching and scouting and so on and having the knowledge base and so on. But some of this comes down to these analytics that I'm looking at. I think I'm looking at numbers that most of the league is not looking at. And I
Yeah.
mean, if it's one or two other guys, that's great. But then I think your method is trash anyhow, so that ain't gonna matter. And then what ends up happening more times than not, I'm higher than whoever that team was. It ain't usually the person who won the championship because that person usually is some fluke. In the leagues I've been in,
I don't even think it's a fluke. I think it's just most of the time it comes down to who can stay healthiest. That's the thing with the NFL.
Right.
How far can you make it?
Right. And I mean, they get back to Moneyball.
Yeah.
But Moneyball helps me. It really helped me. I mean, extremely when I was able to apply it to like my fantasy leagues.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, oh my god.
How do you? Because you go from looking
works.
at names and how great, quote unquote, these players are, to looking at, especially with just drafting for a fantasy league, just value.
I'm gonna do you one better. It gets you to stop looking at that ranking number.
Yes.
And stop being a ranking slave. I know I'm doing a little fantasy piece because nothing bothers me more than a ranking slave. Like you could sit there and talk to the cows come home about how not to get this person that's ranked 16 and get the 18 guy. Trust me, it's all points in the 16 based on some fluky, non-existent, non-related element that got them in that in the first place.
No, and the reason why they get those freaking numbers is because it's projected points on a season. I'm like, how did you even get that? They're never even anywhere near close.
What is your like? Okay, in this game, you just think that this random receiver is going to get 2 touchdowns and 121 yards just
based off of what?
Based on preseason. Half of these guys ain't even gonna be on a defense next week.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's exactly. And these be the bus, and you'd be like, well, that was the next one in line. Yeah, you have four
To
studs
what?
right behind them, and because because as you know, there's people to avoid. Like, nope, that's a trap.
Yeah.
That's a pitfall. That's an inflated number, and that's what I'm
I will
saying.
say this,
Yeah,
this is just for my fantasy insight, and we'll probably have a whole another segment
that'd be
throughout the
wonderful.
season.
We could do
Yeah.
that.
But to me, we haven't even hit the NFL draft yet, and I've already started looking at fantasy stuff. I already have 5 guys on my do not draft list.
Wow. And I'm gonna say this, and if you ain't started and you ain't looked at your team and you ain't been following the NFL and you call yourself gonna get back into your league next year, you already behind the curve.
I'm
I'm just
coming for
telling
that
you right now.
championship, Ben.
There you go. All right. So there we go. So Moneyball, I found a strong connection to my fantasy career,
100%.
my fantasy league. Now, flip side for Creed, it inspired my life.
I know, and I respect that.
No, you need to hear what I'm saying. This was back when I started, this came out during that time when I started, Hall of Fame jerseys.
Oh yeah.
That was what that drive. I don't know what that movie just drove me to get that thing up and moving. Now I need another movie to get me to push it over, but that's another conversation. What I'm saying is during that time, a lot of it was contributed to Creed, the movie, the soundtrack, everything about it, everything that it represented, how he chose less to gain more in the long run. He chose the harder path and kind of took a detour and came back around and got everything he was looking for by the end.
The greater heights than what he was looking for.
Exactly. And I mean, if that don't speak to them heartstrings, I don't, Moneyball does. It don't speak to that though, and that's all I was. Not the same kind of movie though.
Yeah, no, and I think Moneyball touches on heartstrings in a different way because it's more about his relationship with his daughter and holding himself accountable to her.
Exactly.
Not to.
Or what mattered more was his career bigger than his relationship to his child.
Yeah.
And obviously it wasn't. That he was like, look, I still got a job with the A's and I can keep my relationship with my daughter intact. His daughter was on board, but yet was not. He knew. That he did not want. I mean, if anything, I think he didn't want to be away from her no more than she wanted to be away from him.
Yeah, and I think that, and the thing that touched that to me the most with Moneyball was not the fact that throughout the entire movie, it never changed for him. Anytime that his daughter brought it up, he keeps telling her, "No, like I'm here. I'm gonna be with you. You don't have to worry." Don't look at those press clippings. Don't look at people are going to say things.
Right.
And he never changed it. I think even though he took that meeting with Boston, I think he did that out of respect for Boston. It wasn't about him, oh, well, I'm thinking about leaving. No, because I just, out of due diligence, I have to do this. I have to obligate myself to do this, but I'm not leaving my daughter.
Got to hear what they're offering. Like I know what I'm turning down.
Yeah.
And that's, which was kind of the PS to the movie.
Yeah.
Like he stayed, and that's as you were saying, that's who he was from the beginning. He just, look, we got this Moneyball system. I'm here in Oakland. My daughter's here. That's what we're doing, and as long as I got a job and I'm doing that, that's what I'm going to do here,
Yeah.
Now, so I, even with all of that, that's what, with Creed, that became my tiebreaker, which was it. The inspiration was a little bit more. It drove me to do something more. I think that was more effective for my life and my development, as opposed to fantasy is great. Trust me, because I'm killing it in fantasy from a career aspect. Like if we was like UFC fighters, like I'm gonna use that because ain't nobody in UFC running around here 40-0.
No.
So you can lose on any, and that's how it is in fantasy. You just don't dominate 100%. I win 90% of all of my. Dude, what league you in? And like, let me get in,
league.
Because you telling me you ain't get figured out yet? Church, dude, you ain't that good.
I don't think any time that I've ever played fantasy, I've never had a season where
that's not even the best. That's just called that's a man. That is genius. That on genius mode.
Not even that. It's just you got nobody you're going up against.
He said, "I ain't giving you that."
No, but to me, like, because I mean, in my league, I've got what 4 years of a sample size to show that, like, yes, my first year I came in, I went 10-3, won the championship. And then the last 2 years, I've been that guy that just made the wild card spot, and then I ran the table in the playoffs. And the last 2 times I lost in the championship,
Mm.
and I'm pissed about it because this year was supposed to be my redemption year from losing in the championship last year
I
or the year
don't.
before that,
I don't know any of
and I
those.
was right there. I lost by 2 points.
I only lost in the championship game once, so I don't know what. I'm generally, if I'm in there, I'm winning it. So
I got to me. Well, I thought that's who I was my first year being a commissioner, and I came in and I completely ran the league. But then next year, come through, I made the playoffs, got knocked out in the first round, and then the last 2 years, I just can't. I get to the championship and then I lose on some BS.
That dreadful Week 15 semifinals. I cannot get over the.
Oh yeah, you've lost there the
in
last
the
2
one
times.
bracket. Oh my God, that's why I keep losing in that top. I'm always in the top bracket. I'm either a 1, a 4, or a 5 every single year. I'm in the same place every year. I'm never at that bottom. I need to just tank. I need to start learning how to tank games in fantasy. I'm on some real sophisticated stuff now. Like I'm a control.
I'm either the 1 seed or I'm in the wild card.
I'm gonna start load managing my fantasy
my
team.
roster. No, but man,
that's why I picked Creed. I didn't pick Creed just to be difficult. I was like,
no, and I respect. Like I said,
Moneyball. He gonna
both
make
of
this
these.
really interesting.
It's hard.
Yeah, I'm glad you took one and I took the other. I think it's fitting because it's gonna come down to a coin flip in the championship.
Which I was gonna say is like, yes, this is gonna come down to a coin flip, and that sucks. But
so typical.
Also, what I'm gonna do is we're not actually gonna cap this off. Basically, what I think we should do. We do the coin flip. The coin flip says what it says.
Okay. We don't say anything.
No, yeah. We've already made our choices and it's come out to a tie. I'm gonna leave it to the fans.
Oh, I like that.
And you guys get to pick which one wins the championship here. So you'll have it on Twitter. I'll have it up for a week. We'll talk about I'll have it up for 6 days then so we can talk about it and we can wrap it up with our next episode.
And for those who are listening to this on YouTube, just put it in the comment.
Yeah, please put it in the comments or go to Twitter, open up a new tab, go to Twitter and do it. Otherwise, you can leave a comment in the comment section below.
Or do both.
We'll track them there.
Do both, actually.
Yeah. You can vote as many times as you want on YouTube, I guess. So,
right.
No. So that's what we're going to leave it there as. But let's do the coin flip to see what the coin will say. And we're going to have Moneyball as heads. We're going to have Creed as tails. And if my thing will flip. Come on. Creed wins.
And tails never fails.
No, so that is going to do it.
So we know who actually won. But y'all go ahead and y'all vote now.
Go ahead, put in your votes. Let us know what you guys think down below. And definitely leave us with your comments, whether you're making your vote or also just telling us why we're wrong and why neither one of these should even be in the finals. But other than that, please do go follow us on Twitter at @the_square_pod. And there's going to be, again, polls go out there. We do live updates throughout the week when we can't get down and do a show. And anything else related to the show will be there. Which also the show, please like, rate, subscribe. And please, the biggest thing that you can do for the show is share it to all of your friends, all of your family, anybody that you know. Again, the guy that you met at the bus stop this afternoon, share it to them as well.
And let us recap again. As Creed just won the national title of greatest sports movies of all time.
Yep.
By defeating Moneyball in the championship. And on this run to the championship, let's remember that Creed beat out Glory Road in rounds 1, facing the Giants in round 2, 42 in round 3, which is the Elite 8. I'm sorry. And then the greatest game ever played in the Final Four, and like I said, Moneyball in the championship. So
nice run it had there.
Yes. So Creed, again, let me tell you how big of a powerhouse how monumental that this was. Moneyball beat the team that beat the team, because Cinderella Man beat out Rocky IV, and therefore Moneyball beat out Cinderella Man, and then Creed beat them. Yeah. So, yeah, they were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year.
True. Very true. No, well, that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys again for listening. Again, like, rate, subscribe, and please do share. And we will catch you guys in the next one.
Have a good one and have a good night.